Ever since I first saw the pair of protective sleeves Ruth Goodman wears in the BBC series Victorian Farm, and later also seen worn by Mrs. Crocombe right here on the YouTubes, I have thought such oversleeves seem a terribly practical and convenient thing to have. I'd like to think that these sleeve protectors are a nice, suitable project for beginners, as it uses a small amount of fabric, a minimal amount of tools, and it doesn't take too long. The placket might be a little finicky, but it is great practice for larger projects. Besides, should it all go pear-shaped, these are for use about the house, not your best outfit. I start by cutting a 40 centimeters or about 16 inches of a densely woven cotton from my stash. This turned out to make my sleeve protectors a bit long, as they kept sliding down to my elbow. So 30 centimeters or 12 inches is probably great aplenty depending on how long your arms are. I then measured the widest point on my arm that I wanted these sleeves to cover and added 3 to 4 inches for put-on-ability, which is still not so wide that they just get in the way. I cut 2 of these, as well as 2 roughly 2-inch wide cuffs and 1.5-inch wide plackets. The cuffs should be long enough to overlap around your wrist by at least half an inch plus seam allowance. And the placket should be cut twice as long as you want your sleeve slit to be. You'll see why in a second. The placket is pinned on the inside of our sleeve and stitched on with strong back stitches. I was going to put a whole bit here about how I stopped buying matching thread for my projects and mainly stick to black and white because that actually gets used beyond that one project that required that specific color. But then I found a spool of brown thread in my old stash, so that whole point became kinda moot. When half the placket is sewn on one side, we flip the sleeve around and sew the other half onto the opposing side. Placket attached, sewing up the rest of the sleeve is very similar to how we'd treat a gusset for shirts and shifts. Make sure you get your stitches really tight and strong in the corner without stitching into the placket, and then continue up the rest of the sleeve. If you're clever, unlike me, you'll leave a section of the top unstitched for our drawstring opening later. Basic sleeve shape in place, we turn our attention back to the placket, which is folded back around with the raw edge folded under, encasing anything that might fray. To get neatly around that bit where the sleeve seam continues, we cut a small slit into the seam allowance without cutting into our stitching. We then stitch the placket down with small hemming stitches. If you saw my latest video, you'll know that I like to fell my seams as I go, so that is exactly what we're going to do next. I cut half the seam allowance off one side and fold the other over before giving it the same hemming stitch treatment. Hemming done, we once again return our attention to our placket, which should protrude from the rest of the sleeve like this. When the sleeve is turned right side out, we should be able to lay one side of the sleeve slit over the other pretty seamlessly. This is also where we choose if our sleeve closes right over left or left over right. We need one of each for a matching set of sleeves. Sides chosen, we stitch down the bottom of our placket with some strong back stitches to keep it in place, as well as up the top side. Gathering is next. And here is where I learned to appreciate the geometrical wonders of stripy fabrics, as achieving even gathering stitches not just around the sleeve, but also when matching the second row of stitches to the first, is faster and easier than anything I have ever managed previously. Before we gather our sleeve though, let us quickly sew up the sides of our cuff and mark the half and quarter points. Corresponding points are marked on our sleeve to distribute our gathers evenly, and everything is pinned generously before strong backstitches secures everything in place. Just like with our placket, the other side of our cuff is folded onto the other side and folded under to hide all raw edges, before each tiny gather is secured with hemming stitches. Pro tip: don't place your white stripe at the very bottom of the cuff to contrast glaringly with the brown thread like I'm doing here. For our cuff to close securely, I have some tiny and utterly charming shell buttons. It is only one buttonhole for each sleeve for this project, which is quickly done. I briefly considered using white thread to match the button, but in the end I think the brown on white actually goes perfectly with my brown and white stripe. What do you think? The last thing before we can call this project complete is the drawstring at the top of the sleeve. Here you can see me doing that sneaky thing of having the drawstring already inserted as I sew the drawstring casing. The thickness of the cotton cord really helps here, as I can feel it through the fabric and ensure that it is way over on the other side of the casing while I stitch, so I do not accidentally stitch into it. And through the magic of cinematography, we now have two sleeve protectors. As someone who is always trying to learn how to do more things at home, I am already deeply in love with these sleeve protectors. Along with my old apron, it helps protect my clothes from stains, helping them to last longer and enabling me to wear them for longer in between washes. As I mentioned in the beginning, I did make them a bit long, causing them to slide down a bit, so I might shorten them in the future. But other than that, I am absolutely thrilled. The cinnamon buns were quite nice too.